The telegram shook in Beatrice Dawson's hands as she stood on the dusty platform of the Tropic, Utah train station in the summer of 1884, reading the words that confirmed what she had always feared. Her father's business partner had written to inform the town council that a woman had no place running a cattle operation, and they should consider her late father's assets forfeit to more capable hands. Beatrice was 22 years old, and she had spent the last 6 weeks traveling from Boston after her father died unexpectedly of a heart condition, leaving her his small ranch outside this remote Utah town. She had never been west of Philadelphia, and everyone back home had told her she would never fit in among the rough frontier folk. Her mother's sister had been particularly vocal, insisting that a proper young woman belonged in refined society, not chasing cattle in the desert. The heat hit her like a physical wall as she stepped down from the platform, her dark traveling dress already making her perspire. She was tall for a woman, with auburn hair she kept pinned tightly in a bun, and green eyes that held more determination than anyone had ever given her credit for. Her father had been her only ally, teaching her mathematics and business despite her aunt's protests that such knowledge was unladylike. Now he was gone, and she was alone in a place that seemed determined to reject her before she even arrived. A weathered man in a dusty hat approached her, his face leathery from years in the sun. "You Miss Dawson?" he asked, his voice rough as gravel. "I am," she said, straightening her spine. "Name is Frank Miller. I worked for your pa, got the wagon here to take you out to the ranch." His eyes were not unkind, but they held skepticism. "Though I will say, miss, this is not Boston. Ranching is hard work and most men cannot handle it, let alone a lady fresh from the East." "Then I suppose I will have to prove I am not most people," Beatrice replied, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. The ride to the ranch took nearly 2 hours, and with every mile, Beatrice felt the landscape change. The red rock formations jutted from the earth like ancient sentinels, and the air was so dry it made her throat ache. Frank pointed out landmarks, his voice carrying the kind of knowledge that came from decades in this country. He told her about the ranch, how her father had built it up from nothing 12 years ago, how he had been respected but never quite wealthy. "Your pa's partner, Samuel Crane, he has been telling folks you will sell to him," Frank said as they crested a hill. "He has been wanting this land for years. Good water rights here, you see, rare in these parts. I have no intention of selling," Beatrice said firmly. "My father left this to me, and I intend to honor that." Frank glanced at her, something like approval flickering in his eyes. "Well then, miss, you are going to need help, and you are going to need it from someone who knows this country and does not have designs on your property." The ranch, when it came into view, was smaller than Beatrice had imagined but sturdy. A wooden house with a wide porch, a barn that had seen better days, and several corrals that held a modest herd of cattle. The mountains rose in the distance, purple and imposing against the endless blue sky. 2 men were working near the barn as they pulled up. One was older, with silver in his beard, and the other was younger, tall and lean with dark hair that curled slightly at his neck. The younger man looked up as the wagon approached, and Beatrice found herself meeting a pair of steady blue eyes that held neither mockery nor dismissal, just calm assessment. "That is Wade Daniels," Frank said, following her gaze. "Best horseman in 3 counties. Your pa hired him on about 6 months ago. The other fellow is his uncle, George. Good men, both of them." Wade Daniels wiped his hands on his worn denim trousers and walked toward the wagon with an easy, confident stride. He was probably around 25, Beatrice guessed, with the kind of build that came from hard physical work rather than leisure. His face was tanned and handsome in a rugged way, with a strong jaw and a mouth that looked like it smiled often, though at the moment it was serious. "Miss Dawson," he said, reaching up to help her down from the wagon. His hand was calloused and strong, his grip respectful but firm. "Sorry for your loss. Your father was a good man." "Thank you," Beatrice said, surprised by the genuine warmth in his voice. Up close, she could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes like storm clouds in a clear sky. "Wade here stayed on even when he could have gone to work for bigger outfits," Frank said. "Loyal, like I said." Wade shrugged, releasing Beatrice's hand. "Your father gave me a chance when I needed one. I do not forget things like that." He looked at her directly, and Beatrice felt an unexpected jolt at the intensity of his gaze. "But I will be straight with you, Miss Dawson. Running this place is not going to be easy. Samuel Crane has been spreading talk that you will fail, and some folks are listening. You are going to face opposition just for being a woman in this business." "I have faced opposition my entire life," Beatrice said, lifting her chin. "I do not intend to let it stop me now." Something shifted in Wade's expression, a hint of respect warming his features. "Well then, I guess we should get you settled and show you around the operation." The house was simple but clean, with furniture her father had clearly made himself. Beatrice walked through the rooms, touching surfaces, trying to feel some connection to the man who had lived here, so far from the life they had known together. There were account books on a desk, and she sat down to examine them, her mathematical training making the numbers tell their story. The ranch was not in debt, which was good, but it was not profitable either. Her father had been barely breaking even, and she could see where Samuel Crane had been extending small loans, creating a web of obligation. It was clever and insidious, and it made her angry. A knock on the door interrupted her reading. Wade stood there, hat in hand, looking slightly uncertain for the first time since she had met him. "Did not mean to disturb you, but I thought you might want to see the rest of the property before dark. And you should probably change into something more practical if you have it." Beatrice looked down at her traveling dress, then back at Wade. "I am afraid all my clothes are similarly impractical. I did not have much guidance on proper ranch attire." Wade's mouth twitched in what might have been the start of a smile. "Well, that is something we can solve. Come on." He led her to the barn where he pulled out a trunk from a corner. "Your father kept your mother's things," he said quietly. "She passed before I came here, but Frank told me about her. Said she was a strong woman who could ride as well as any man." Inside the trunk were split skirts, practical cotton blouses, and a pair of worn boots that looked about Beatrice's size. She touched the fabric, feeling a connection to a mother she had barely known. Her mother had died when she was 3, and her father had never remarried, eventually moving west while Beatrice was raised by relatives in Boston. "I will give you privacy to change," Wade said, turning to go. "Wade," Beatrice called, and he paused. "Thank you for staying, for helping." He looked back at her, and this time he did smile, a genuine expression that transformed his face. "You have not seen the work yet. You might not be thanking me after tomorrow." Over the next few weeks, Beatrice learned what it truly meant to run a ranch. Wade was a patient but demanding teacher, showing her how to check the cattle for disease, how to mend fences, how to identify which pastures had the best grazing. Her hands, which had been soft and suited for holding teacups, became calloused and strong. Her face tanned despite the bonnet she wore, and her muscles ached in ways she had never imagined possible. But she also felt more alive than she ever had in Boston. There was something about the vastness of the Utah landscape, the way the sunset painted the red rocks in shades of orange and gold, the smell of sage after a rare rain shower. And there was something about Wade, the way he never treated her as less capable. only less experienced. "You are a quick learner," he told her one evening as they checked the cattle in the north pasture. "Quicker than most men I have worked with." "My father used to say I had a head for details," Beatrice said, running her hand along a fence post to check its stability. Though he was never able to convince anyone else of that. Wade was quiet for a moment, then said, "People fear what they do not understand. A woman who can think and work as well as a man threatens the order of things, makes men question their own worth. And does it threaten you?" Beatrice asked, surprised by her own boldness. Wade looked at her, his blue eyes clear and honest. "No, madam. I figure a person's worth comes from what they do, not what they were born as. You have proven yourself to me already." Something warm unfurled in Beatrice's chest, a feeling she was not quite ready to name. The trouble came on a hot August afternoon. Samuel Crane arrived at the ranch with 3 men, all of them armed. Beatrice was in the house going over the books when she heard the horses. Wade and George were out checking the irrigation ditches, and Frank had gone into town for supplies. She was alone. Crane was a thick man in his 50s, with gray mutton chops and small eyes that held calculation rather than warmth. He had been her father's partner in name only, having invested some money years ago in exchange for a share of any profits. As far as Beatrice could tell from the books, there had never been any profits to share. "Miss Dawson," he said, not bothering to dismount, "I have come to make you a final offer for this property. $500, which is more than generous given the state of things." "The ranch is not for sale, Mr. Crane," Beatrice said, stepping onto the porch. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her voice level. "Now let us be reasonable," Crane said, his tone patronizing. "A woman cannot run a ranch. You have been playing at it for a few weeks, but reality will set in soon enough. Take my offer and go back to Boston where you belong." "I belong here," Beatrice said, surprised by how true the words felt. "This is my home now," Crane's face darkened. "I have been patient, but my patience has limits. Your father owed me, and I intend to collect one way or another." "The books show no such debt," Beatrice said firmly. "You were a silent partner who contributed minimal capital. You have no claim here beyond what has already been repaid through your share of the livestock sales." One of Crane's men laughed, a mean sound. "Listen to her, talking about books and numbers. Maybe someone needs to teach her a lesson about how things work out here." "I would not finish that thought if I were you." Wade's voice came from the side of the house, calm but carrying an edge of steel. He walked into view, his hand resting casually on the revolver at his hip. George emerged from the other direction, equally armed and equally ready. "This does not concern you, Daniels," Crane said, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice now. "Anything concerning Miss Dawson concerns me," Wade said, positioning himself between Beatrice and the mounted men. "And you are on her property uninvited, making threats. I suggest you leave." "You are just a hired hand," Crane spat. "Do not think you can stand in the way of business." "I am not standing in the way of business," Wade said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I am standing in the way of theft and intimidation. There is a difference." The tension stretched tight as a wire. Beatrice could see Crane calculating his odds, looking at Wade and George, both clearly capable men. Finally, he jerked his horse's head around. "This is not over," he said to Beatrice. "You will fail, and when you do, I will be there to pick up the pieces for pennies on the dollar." They rode off in a cloud of dust, leaving silence in their wake. Beatrice realized she had been holding her breath and released it in a shaky exhale. Wade turned to her, his face tight with concern. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she said, then more honestly, "No, that was frightening." "He is a bully and a coward," Wade said, his anger evident. "But he is also connected. We need to be careful." "I will not be driven off," Beatrice said fiercely. "I will not let him win." Wade studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we dig in and fight, but we do it smart." That evening, as the sun set in a blaze of crimson and gold, Beatrice and Wade sat on the porch going over strategy. George had taken the evening watch, and Frank was securing the barn. "Crane has influence with the town council," Wade said, stretching his long legs out in front of him. "But he does not own everyone. There are good people in Tropic who knew your father and respected him. We need to make alliances. How do we do that?" Beatrice asked, very aware of how close Wade was sitting, how his presence made her feel both safe and agitated in ways she did not fully understand. "There is a meeting next week, the Cattlemen's Association. Normally, women do not attend, but you are not a normal woman." He said it matter-of-factly, but his eyes held warmth. "You show up, you present yourself as someone serious about this business, and you make them see you are not going anywhere. You make it sound simple." "It will not be simple," Wade admitted. "You will face mockery and dismissal. But you are strong enough to handle it." "How do you know?" Beatrice asked quietly. Wade turned to look at her, his blue eyes intense in the fading light. "Because I have watched you work yourself to exhaustion every day for weeks, never complaining, always learning. Because you stood up to Crane without flinching. Because you remind me of why I came west in the first place, to find people who judge on merit instead of circumstances of birth." "You never told me where you came from," Beatrice said, drawn into his gaze. Wade looked away, out at the darkening landscape. "Virginia, originally. My family had a small farm, but after the war and Reconstruction, things fell apart. Lost everything to carpetbaggers and debt. I was 15 when we lost the farm, and I have been working my way west ever since, trying to find a place where hard work matters more than your name or your past." "Did you find it?" Beatrice asked softly. Wade looked back at her, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. "I think maybe I did," he said quietly. "Your father gave me a job when I was down to my last dollar. He treated me like I mattered. And now you are doing the same thing, fighting for something you believe in despite everyone telling you it is impossible. That is the kind of place I want to be. That is the kind of person I want to stand beside." The air between them felt charged, heavy with things unsaid. Beatrice knew she should look away, should maintain proper distance, but she could not. Wade's face was so open, so honest, and she realized with a start that she trusted him completely. This man she had known only a few weeks. "Wade, she began, but he shook his head gently. "You do not need to say anything," he said. "I just wanted you to know that you are not alone in this fight, and I am not just staying because I owed your father. I am staying because I choose to." The moment stretched between them, full of possibility and promise. Then George called out from the barn about one of the horses, and the spell broke. Wade stood, offering his hand to help Beatrice up, and the simple touch of his rough palm against hers sent warmth flooding through her. The Cattlemen's Association meeting was held in the largest building in Tropic, a general store with a back room that served as the community gathering space. Beatrice arrived with Wade at her side, dressed in her most practical but presentable outfit, her hair neatly pinned but not fussily styled. She had spent hours preparing, memorizing figures about her herd size, her water rights, her plans for breeding stock. The room fell silent when she entered. 20 men, ranging from young ranch hands to grizzled veterans of the territory, all stared at her with varying degrees of surprise and disapproval. Samuel Crane sat near the front, his face splitting into a satisfied sneer. "Well now," he said loudly, "looks like we have a visitor." "Sorry, miss, but this is a business meeting. Perhaps the ladies' sewing circle is meeting somewhere else. A few men chuckled, but Beatrice noticed that not all of them did. She walked to the front of the room, her chin high, Wade a steady presence beside her. "I am not a visitor, Mr. Crane," she said clearly. "I am a ranch owner and a member of this association, or at least I should be, given that my father was a founding member." "Your father was a man," Crane said bluntly. "The association is for cattlemen, not cattlewomen." "Then perhaps it is time to update your membership requirements," Beatrice said, opening her notebook. "I own 240 acres with water rights. I run a herd of approximately 150 head, and I employ 3 full-time workers. By your own bylaws, that qualifies me for membership. Unless your bylaws specifically exclude women, which I suspect they do not, as my father would never have agreed to such discrimination." An older man near the back spoke up. "She has a point. The bylaws say rancher, not male rancher." Old Tom Dawson was particular about language like that. "This is ridiculous," Crane blustered. "A woman cannot possibly understand the complexities of cattle ranching." "Then test me," Beatrice said boldly. "Ask me any question about ranching, about the market, about herd management. If I cannot answer to your satisfaction, I will withdraw my request for membership." The room erupted in murmurs. Wade touched her elbow gently, a gesture of support, and she drew strength from it. A lean man with intelligent eyes stood up. "All right, Miss Dawson. What is your plan for winter feed, given that we are in the 3rd year of drought conditions?" Beatrice had studied this exact issue. "I am rotating my herd to prevent overgrazing, and I have secured hay contracts with 2 suppliers in the valley. I am also investigating the possibility of improving my irrigation system to support alfalfa growth on the south pasture, which has soil composition suitable for legumes." The man nodded slowly, looking impressed. Another man asked about breeding stock, and Beatrice answered with specifics about bloodlines and market demand for different cattle types. A third asked about her financial backing, a trap question meant to expose weakness. But Beatrice calmly explained her capital reserves and her strategy for maintaining liquidity while investing in infrastructure. After 20 minutes of interrogation, the room had gone quiet again, but this time with a different quality. These were men who knew their business, and they could recognize competence when they heard it. "I think the lady knows her cattle," the lean man said finally. "I am Robert Henderson, and I own the spread 3 miles north of yours. I vote we grant Miss Dawson membership." "Seconded," said another man, the older one who had spoken about the bylaws. Crane stood up, his face red. "This is a mockery. You cannot seriously be considering this." "Why not?" Henderson challenged. "She knows her business better than half the men in this room. Tom Dawson taught his daughter well." The vote was called, and despite Crane's opposition, Beatrice was granted membership by a margin of 14-6. As the meeting continued, discussing water rights disputes and market prices, she felt Wade's quiet pride beside her, and her own sense of triumph was almost overwhelming. After the meeting, several ranchers approached her to introduce themselves properly. Henderson shook her hand firmly. "You have grit, Miss Dawson. That counts for a lot out here. If you need advice or help, my door is open." "Thank you," Beatrice said sincerely. "That means a great deal." As they walked out to the wagon, Wade finally let his grin show fully. "You were magnificent in there." "Did you see Crane's face when Henderson voted for you?" Beatrice laughed, the tension of the evening releasing in a rush. "I was terrified the entire time. My hands are still shaking." Wade caught one of her hands, holding it gently. "You would never know it. You walked in there like you owned the place." "I kept thinking about what you said," Beatrice admitted, looking up at him in the lamplight spilling from the store windows. "About choosing to stand beside me. It gave me courage." Wade's expression grew serious, his thumb brushing softly over her knuckles. "Beatrice, I need to tell you something. I know it is not proper, and I know you are a refined lady from Boston while I am just a ranch hand with nothing but a horse and a worn saddle to my name, but I cannot keep pretending I do not feel what I feel." Beatrice's heart hammered against her ribs. "What do you feel, Wade?" "That I am falling in love with you," he said simply, his blue eyes holding hers. "Have been since the day you arrived and lifted your chin at Frank and declared you were going to prove yourself. I love your strength, your intelligence, your refusal to be defined by other people's limitations. I love how you look in the morning with the sun on your face when you are checking the cattle. I love how your mind works through problems. I just love you, Beatrice, and I do not care if it is too soon or too improper to say so." Beatrice felt tears prick her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. "Wade Daniels, I have been told my entire life that I do not fit in anywhere, that I am too educated for my own good, too independent, too stubborn. That no man would ever want a woman who argues about mathematics and reads agricultural journals. Everyone in Boston said I would never fit in out west, that I would fail and come running home. And," Wade prompted gently, still holding her hand, "and you told me, every day through your actions, that I fit perfectly here. On this ranch, in this landscape, in this life we are building. You made me feel like I belong for the first time ever. So yes, Wade, I love you too. I love your patience and your loyalty. I love how you treat me as an equal partner. I love your quiet strength and your rare smiles and the way you sit on a horse like you were born in the saddle. I love you, and I do not care if it is improper either." Wade's face transformed with joy, and he pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her in a way that felt like coming home. "I do not have much to offer you," he murmured against her hair, "but I promise I will work every day of my life to make you happy, to build something good with you." "You have everything I need," Beatrice said, pulling back to look at him. "You have honor and kindness, and you believe in me. That is worth more than all the money in Boston." Wade lowered his head slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She did not want to. His lips met hers in a kiss that was gentle but full of promise, and Beatrice felt the last pieces of her old life fall away. She was not the constrained, limited woman her relatives had tried to make her. She was Beatrice Dawson, rancher, and the woman Wade Daniels loved. The next months were not easy, but they were full. Beatrice and Wade worked side by side to improve the ranch, and their love grew deeper with each shared sunrise, each challenge overcome together. They faced continued opposition from Samuel Crane, who attempted to block her water rights and spread rumors about impropriety between her and Wade. The water rights issue came to a head in October, when Crane tried to divert the stream that fed Beatrice's property. Wade discovered it during a morning ride and immediately gathered evidence, photographing the illegal dam with a camera borrowed from the town photographer. They brought the case to the territorial court, and Beatrice testified with calm precision about the documented water rights her father had secured years earlier. The judge, a stern man from Salt Lake City, ruled in Beatrice's favor and fined Crane substantially. It was a public defeat that diminished his influence considerably. As for the rumors about impropriety, Wade solved that in his own direct way. On a crisp November morning, with the first snow dusting the red rocks, he rode into town and spoke to the local minister, then returned to the ranch and formally proposed to Beatrice. They were in the barn, and she was treating a horse with a sore hoof. Wade knelt down in the straw, hat in hand, his blue eyes serious but warm. "Beatrice Dawson, I know we have only known each other 7 months, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. I want to build this ranch with you. I want to share every sunrise and every hardship. I want to be your partner in all things, legal and otherwise. Will you marry me?" Beatrice set down the horse's hoof and knelt facing him, taking his hands. "Wade Daniels, 7 months ago I arrived here expecting to be rejected and alone. Instead, I found a home and a partner and a love I never dreamed existed. Yes, I will marry you. Yes to all of it." Wade pulled a simple silver band from his pocket. "It was my grandmother's," he said. "The only thing of value my family managed to keep. She would have liked you." The ring fit perfectly, and Beatrice thought how appropriate that was. They were married in the small church in Tropic 3 weeks later, with Frank and George standing up for Wade, and the wife of Robert Henderson standing with Beatrice. It was a simple ceremony, but heartfelt, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Wade's kiss held all the joy and promise of their future together. The reception was held at the ranch, and to Beatrice's surprise and pleasure, most of the Cattlemen's Association attended, bringing their families. Even in the midst of celebration, she and Wade worked together as a team, ensuring everyone was fed and comfortable. It was a true partnership, and people could see it. Samuel Crane did not attend, but they heard later that he had sold his holdings and moved to Nevada, unable to maintain his standing after his court defeat, and the clear success of Beatrice's ranch under her and Wade's management. The winter was hard, as winters in southern Utah could be, but Beatrice and Wade faced it together. They spent long evenings by the fire, planning improvements for spring, reading aloud to each other from books and newspapers, simply enjoying the quiet intimacy of shared space. Wade taught Beatrice to play chess, and she taught him more advanced bookkeeping techniques. They were partners in every sense of the word. Making love was a revelation for Beatrice, a physical expression of the trust and passion they shared. Wade was gentle and patient, and in the privacy of their bedroom, they discovered joy in each other that seemed to deepen their bond even further. There were nights when they simply held each other, talking about their dreams and fears, and those nights were as precious as the passionate ones. By spring, Beatrice knew she was pregnant. She told Wade one morning as they watched the sun rise over the red rocks, turning the landscape to fire. "I am with child," she said simply, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. Wade's face went through a series of expressions: shock, joy, fear, determination, and then back to pure joy. "Beatrice," he breathed. "Are you well? Are you sure? What do you need?" She laughed at his flurry of questions and kissed him. "I am perfectly well, I am sure. And what I need is to keep working, keep living our life, and prepare to add a new member to our family." "You fit perfectly here," Wade said, echoing the words he had told her so many months ago when she had doubted herself. "You, me, and now our child. This is our place, our home." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and Beatrice worked the ranch until her 8th month, when Wade finally put his foot down and insisted she focus on lighter tasks. Their son was born in December of 1885, a healthy boy with Wade's blue eyes and Beatrice's determined expression even at birth. They named him Thomas, after Beatrice's father, with the middle name Wade for his father, holding their son, watching Wade's face as he gently touched the baby's tiny hand. Beatrice felt a completeness she had never imagined possible. She thought about the woman she had been when she arrived in Tropic, uncertain and alone, told by everyone that she would fail. She thought about all the people who had said she would never fit in. "What are you thinking?" Wade asked, looking up from Thomas's face. "That they were all wrong," Beatrice said softly. "Everyone who said I would never fit in, never succeed, never find where I belong. They were all wrong." Wade shifted the baby carefully and leaned over to kiss her forehead. "You did not just fit in, love. You blazed a trail. You showed everyone that strength and intelligence matter more than gender or background. You made a place for yourself through sheer determination and heart. We made a place, Beatrice corrected. You and I together. Together, Wade agreed, and the word held all their history and all their future. As Thomas grew, the ranch prospered. Wade and Beatrice expanded their herd and improved their water management system. They became known throughout the territory as innovative ranchers who combined traditional knowledge with new techniques. Beatrice wrote articles for agricultural journals, and Wade trained horses that became sought after throughout Utah and into Nevada. Thomas was 2 when Beatrice became pregnant again, and this time they had twin daughters born in the spring of 1888. They named them Sarah and Emma, and watching Wade with his daughters, so gentle and patient, made Beatrice fall in love with him all over again. The years flowed by, each bringing new challenges and new joys. They survived droughts and harsh winters, dealt with occasional cattle rustlers and market fluctuations, but they faced everything as partners. Robert Henderson became a close friend, and his family and theirs spent many holidays together. Frank and George remained part of their extended family, both men eventually building their own small houses on the property and becoming beloved uncles to the children. In 1892, when Thomas was 7 and the twins were 4, Beatrice was invited to speak at a territorial conference about women in agriculture. She almost declined, still sometimes feeling the old fear of not fitting in, but Wade encouraged her. "You have a story that needs to be told," he said, helping her prepare her speech at the kitchen table while the children played outside under George's watchful eye. "There are probably dozens of women out there who are being told they cannot do things, just like you were told. They need to hear that it is possible." So Beatrice went to Salt Lake City and spoke to a room full of agricultural professionals, both men and women. She told her story honestly, about arriving in Tropic expecting to fail, about the people who believed she could not run a ranch, about the struggles and the victories. And she told them about Wade, about finding a partner who saw her as an equal, who built something with her rather than for her. The speech was well received, and afterward, several young women approached her with tears in their eyes, thanking her for showing them a different path was possible. Beatrice realized that her struggle had been about more than just her own success. It had been about opening doors for others. When she returned home, Wade was waiting at the train station with the children. Thomas ran to her, shouting about the foal that had been born while she was gone, and the twins competed to tell her about the cookies they had made with Frank. Wade hung back, letting the children have their moment, but his eyes held pride and love. That night, after the children were asleep, they sat on the porch as they had so many times before, watching the stars emerge in the vast Utah sky. "I am proud of you," Wade said quietly. "Not just for the speech, but for everything. For having the courage to come here in the first place, for standing up to Crane, for being an amazing mother and partner, for being yourself uncompromisingly." "I could not have done any of it without you," Beatrice said, leaning into his shoulder. "You gave me the space to be myself. You never tried to diminish me or control me. You just stood beside me and believed in me." "You made it easy," Wade said, kissing the top of her head. "Loving you has been the easiest and best thing I have ever done." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only came from years of true partnership. Beatrice thought about the journey that had brought her here, all the twists and turns, the struggles and the triumphs. She thought about being 22 and terrified, holding that telegram on the train platform. She thought about Wade's first words to her, offering condolences and straightforward assessment without judgment. Over the years, they continued to build their legacy. Thomas grew into a thoughtful young man who loved the ranch as much as his parents did. The twins were wild and creative, exploring every inch of the property and keeping their parents constantly entertained and occasionally exasperated. In 1895, they had another son, whom they named James, and he completed their family. Wade proved to be as excellent a father as he was a husband and partner. He taught Thomas to ride and rope, but he also taught his daughters the same skills, insisting that capable hands were capable regardless of gender. He read to them every night, told them stories of his travels before settling in Utah, and modeled what a good man looked like, one who respected women as equals and judged people by their character rather than their circumstances. Beatrice watched her children grow up free from the limitations she had faced, and it filled her with satisfaction. Sarah declared at age 10 that she wanted to be a veterinarian, and neither Wade nor Beatrice told her it was impossible. Emma wanted to be a writer, and they encouraged her to fill journal after journal with her observations and stories. Thomas wanted to expand the ranch, and they began teaching him the complex business of land management and herd genetics. James, the youngest, was still finding his path, but they gave him the same freedom and support they gave the others. The ranch became one of the most successful in southern Utah, known for quality cattle and fair dealing. Wade and Beatrice were respected throughout the territory, and after 1896, throughout the new state of Utah. They employed several families, providing steady work and decent wages, and their workers were loyal because they were treated with respect and fairness. Robert Henderson often joked that Wade and Beatrice had built a small empire, but it was an empire founded on partnership and mutual respect rather than domination and exploitation. Other ranchers sought their advice, and they gave it freely, believing that a rising tide lifted all boats. In 1900, as the new century dawned, Beatrice and Wade celebrated their 15th wedding anniversary. Their children planned a surprise party, inviting friends and neighbors from all over the region. The ranch yard was filled with music and laughter, and as Beatrice watched her family, her friends, her community, she felt overwhelming gratitude. Wade found her standing slightly apart, watching the celebration with misty eyes. "Happy tears, I hope," he said, sliding his arm around her waist. "The happiest," Beatrice confirmed. "I was just thinking about everything, about how different my life could have been if I had listened to all the people who said I should not come here, that I would fail." "I am selfishly glad you did not listen," Wade said. "Though I understand it must have been frightening." "Terrifying," Beatrice admitted. "I had no idea what I was doing, I just knew I had to try." "You know what I think," Wade said, turning her to face him. "I think you were always meant to be here. I think your father knew it when he left you the ranch. I think the universe knew it when it brought you to that train platform on that hot summer day. And I definitely knew it the moment I saw you climb down from that wagon, all determination and courage wrapped up in impractical clothing." Beatrice laughed. "You did not know any such thing. You probably thought I was a foolish city woman who would run back to Boston within a week." "I thought you were beautiful and fierce," Wade corrected. "And I hoped desperately that you would stay, though I had no right to hope for anything beyond working for you. The fact that you somehow decided to love me back is a miracle I am grateful for every single day." "Wade Daniels, you are a romantic," Beatrice teased, but her voice was thick with emotion. "Only with you," Wade said, and kissed her sweetly, there in the midst of the party, surrounded by their children and friends and the life they had built together. Thomas, now 15 and tall like his father, saw them and called out, "Get a room," which made everyone laugh, but there was affection in the teasing. The years continued their steady march. Thomas married a smart young woman named Rachel in 1905, and they built a house on the northern section of the property, expanding the ranch operations. Sarah left for California in 1907 to study veterinary medicine, one of only a handful of women in her program. Emma published her first collection of short stories in 1909, drawing on her experiences growing up on a Utah ranch. James discovered a talent for mechanics and began experimenting with the new gasoline-powered vehicles that were starting to appear, even in remote Utah. Wade's hair turned gray, then white, but his eyes remained the same clear blue, and his love for Beatrice never wavered. Beatrice's auburn hair showed silver streaks, and she wore reading glasses for the account books. But she still rode the property every morning, checking on cattle and fences with the same attention to detail she had always possessed. They became grandparents in 1906 when Thomas and Rachel had a daughter, Mary. Wade was impossibly gentle with the baby, and Beatrice teased him about becoming soft in his old age, though she was equally enchanted with their granddaughter. More grandchildren followed over the years, and the ranch rang with the voices of a new generation. In 1914, as tensions rose in Europe though they seemed far from the Utah desert, Wade and Beatrice sat on their porch, now weathered by 30 years of sun and wind. They were both in their 50s, still active and healthy, still working the ranch though they had delegated more responsibility to Thomas and the crew. "You ever regret it?" Wade asked suddenly. "Leaving Boston, giving up the life you could have had back east?" Beatrice looked at him in genuine surprise. "Regret? Wade, this has been the best life I could possibly have imagined. I have been free here, free to be myself, to work and think and build something meaningful. I have been blessed with a partner who respects me, children who are finding their own paths, and a home I love. What could I possibly regret?" "I just want to make sure you are happy," Wade said softly. "That has always been my goal, to make you happy." "You have succeeded beyond measure," Beatrice assured him, taking his weathered hand in hers. "I am happy, Wade, truly, deeply happy. You told me once that I fit perfectly here, and you were right. This is where I belong, where I have always belonged. With you in this place we built together." Wade raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I love you, Beatrice Daniels, more today than yesterday, and I will love you more tomorrow than today." "That is impossible," Beatrice said with a smile. "We have reached maximum love capacity. Want to bet?" Wade challenged, his eyes twinkling with the same humor that had attracted her all those years ago. They sat together as the sun set, painting the red rocks in shades of amber and rose. The desert evening was cool and perfect, carrying the scent of sage and dust and home. From inside the house, they could hear their grandchildren playing, and in the distance, the lowing of cattle, the sounds of the ranch they had built from determination and love. The years ahead would bring changes, as years always do. The First World War would touch them when Emma's husband enlisted. The 1920s would bring automobiles and electricity, even to remote southern Utah. The Depression would test them, but they would survive it through careful management and the same determination that had carried them through every other challenge. Through it all, Wade and Beatrice remained partners. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in 1935, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. The party was enormous, with people traveling from all over Utah and beyond to celebrate the couple who had become legendary in the region. At the party, Sarah, now a successful veterinarian with her own practice, stood to give a toast. "To my parents," she said, her voice carrying across the crowd, "who taught us that limitations are usually just lack of imagination. Who showed us that true partnership means building each other up rather than tearing each other down. who proved that love and respect can create something lasting and beautiful. Thank you for showing us how to live with courage and integrity." The crowd raised their glasses and Beatrice wiped away tears. Wade pulled her close and whispered, "She gets her way with words from you." "And her stubbornness from you," Beatrice replied with a laugh. Thomas stood next and shared stories of growing up on the ranch, of watching his parents work together seamlessly, of learning that strength came in many forms. Emma read a short piece she had written about her mother, about a woman who had been told she would never fit in but who had created a place where everyone belonged. James, ever practical, simply said, "You two are the best. End of story." As the party wound down and evening fell, Wade and Beatrice found themselves once again on their beloved porch. They were both in their 70s now, their bodies bearing the marks of long lives well lived, but their hands still fit together perfectly. Their hearts still beat in synchronization. "Do you remember when you proposed?" Beatrice asked, her head resting on Wade's shoulder. "In the barn, kneeling in the straw." "I remember everything," Wade said softly. "Every moment with you is burned into my memory. The good, the hard, the ordinary, the extraordinary, all of it." "We built something good, did we not?" Beatrice asked, looking out over the property that had grown so much from those early days. "We built something magnificent," Wade corrected. "Not just the ranch, but a family, a legacy, a way of living that honors what is right and good." "You did that, Beatrice. You came here when everyone said you would fail, and you built an empire of love and respect." "We did it together," Beatrice insisted, as she always did. "I could never have done it alone." "Maybe not," Wade conceded, "but I could not have done it without you either. We fit together, you and I. We always have." They sat in silence, watching the stars emerge one by one, the same stars they had watched together for 50 years. The desert night was vast and beautiful, full of possibility and peace. Wade and Beatrice lived long lives, into their 80s, surrounded by family and the land they loved. When Wade passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1942, Beatrice held his hand and whispered all the things she loved about him, all the ways he had made her life complete. She mourned him deeply but without regret, knowing they had lived every moment fully together. Beatrice followed him 3 years later in 1945, as the world was changing in ways they could never have imagined back in 1884. She died in the house Wade had helped her father build, surrounded by 3 generations of family, all of them products of the love and partnership she and Wade had shared. The ranch continued, passed down through Thomas and his children, each generation adding their own touches but maintaining the core values of respect, hard work, and integrity that Wade and Beatrice had established. The story of the woman from Boston who had been told she would never fit in, and the cowboy who had told her she fit perfectly, became family legend, told and retold to new generations. In the house, in a place of honor, hung a photograph from their 50th anniversary. Wade and Beatrice stood together, both smiling, his arm around her waist, her hand on his chest. They looked at each other in the photograph rather than at the camera, and the love in that captured moment was so powerful it seemed to radiate from the frame. Beneath the photograph, a small plaque held words that Thomas had inscribed after his mother died. She was told she'd never fit in. He said, "You fit perfectly here." Together they built a home where everyone belonged. And that, truly, was their legacy. Not just the successful ranch or the thriving family, but the proof that love, respect, and partnership could overcome any obstacle. That a woman who had been told she had no place could create a place for herself and countless others. That a man with nothing but a horse and a dream could build something lasting by standing beside someone and believing in them absolutely. Their story became part of the land itself, woven into the red rocks and the desert sky, carried on the wind that still blew through the ranch they had loved. And somewhere in the vast Utah landscape, in the places where the light hit the rocks just right, in the cool of desert evenings, in the loyalty between partners who worked side by side, Wade and Beatrice's love continued, eternal and true, a testament to what was possible when two people found where they truly belonged together.